Captain Hans Becker stood at the helm of the SS Endeavour, gazing out into the void where Earth's atmosphere gave way to the inky blackness of space. The stars, like distant pinpricks against the velvet night, offered a silent, solemn farewell as the ship edged further from the only home mankind had ever known. Every light was a reminder of the vast, unexplored cosmos that lay before them, filled with mysteries that Hans was charged with uncovering. But today, the mission was different. Today, they carried a secret that could either forge Earth's path among the stars or see them relegated to the footnotes of galactic history. The weight of this responsibility bore down on Hans' shoulders as he turned to face his crew, their faces a tapestry of anticipation and anxiety. "Prepare for departure. Set coordinates for the Zilari border," Hans commanded, his voice steady despite the turmoil swirling within him. The SS Endeavour, a ship that had seen better days, now retrofitted with cutting-edge, untested technology, was an underdog in a race populated by giants. Beside him, Dr. Annika Weber adjusted the settings on her console, her hand steady but her brow furrowed with concentration. A renowned xenobiologist and linguist, Annika's role was crucial. She wasn't just a passenger. She was the bridge between humanity and the myriad species they hoped to encounter or confront. "The ghost drive is operational, Captain. We're as invisible as ghosts," Annika reported, a slight quiver in her voice betraying her unease with the reliance on such experimental tech. Hans nodded, his gaze returning to the starfield ahead. "Engage the drive. Let's make history." As the SS Endeavour slipped silently into the faster-than-light travel, the crew held their breath. The drive, a marvel of human ingenuity, wrapped the ship in a cocoon of energy that masked their passage through space, rendering them undetectable to all but the most advanced sensors. Minutes turned to hours as the Endeavour made its way through contested space, the tension aboard palpable. Hans walked the corridors of the ship, passing crew members who looked up to him with a mix of respect and concern. Each step took them further into the unknown. Each second ticking by was a step into a history yet unwritten. Suddenly, a soft alarm chimed. Hans' heart skipped a beat as he dashed back to the bridge. The display showed a proximity alert. They were nearing the Zilari border sooner than anticipated. "Status," Hans demanded, arriving at Annika's side. "We've stumbled upon a Zilari outpost, hidden within an asteroid field. It wasn't on any of our maps," Annika replied, her eyes wide with the implications of their discovery. Hans peered at the screen, where the outline of a massive space station loomed ominously against the backdrop of tumbling rocks and dust. This was no mere outpost. It was a fortress, likely bristling with weaponry and defenses. "This is it," Hans murmured, more to himself than to anyone else. "Engage cloaking and proceed with caution. We're not here to start a war, but if it comes to that, we'll be ready." As the SS Endeavour maneuvered stealthily through the asteroid field, Hans felt the weight of the cosmos on his shoulders. They were alone, a single ship against the might of an empire, but within that solitude lay their strength, for the Zilari had underestimated them. They expected a ghost, and Hans was determined to give them a specter they would never forget. The SS Endeavour glided silently through the dense asteroid field that cloaked the Zilari outpost. Each maneuver was calculated with surgical precision by Captain Hans Becker, who stood vigilant at the command deck, his eyes never straying from the glowing panels and the star-studded blackness beyond. "Keep us on this trajectory, Lieutenant. Minimal thrust, steady as she goes," Hans instructed the helmsman, his voice a calm whisper that barely rose above the ambient hum of the ship's engines. Beside him, Dr. Annika Weber monitored the communication arrays, her fingers dancing across the console, adjusting frequencies and decoders to intercept any Zilari transmissions. The tension in the air was palpable, a mix of excitement and apprehension as they ventured deeper into enemy territory, cloaked in their experimental stealth technology. Suddenly, the console beeped softly, indicating a successful intercept. Annika's focus intensified as she parsed through the alien language, a task made easier by her extensive study of Zilari linguistics. "Captain, I've tapped into their communication network. It's mostly routine updates, but I'll keep scanning for anything substantial," she reported, her voice steady despite the adrenaline that coursed through her veins. Hans nodded in acknowledgement, his gaze still fixed on the navigation data. The outpost loomed larger now, a massive structure carved into the largest asteroid, bristling with antennas and gun turrets, silent but undoubtedly deadly. "Bring us closer, but keep us in the shadow of these asteroids. I want a closer look at their operations without triggering their defense systems," Hans directed, knowing each order brought them closer to potential discovery and danger. The Endeavour slipped through the asteroid shadows like a ghost, its presence masked by the innovative technology that made it invisible to sensors. The crew moved quietly, aware that the safety of the ship rested on their ability to remain undetected. As they neared the outpost, Annika's console lit up with a flurry of intercepted messages. Her eyes widened as she deciphered the content. "Captain, they're discussing a shipment of what seems like weapons-grade plutonium scheduled for transport to their home planet. It's highly guarded, but it's real, and it's happening soon." Hans processed this new information, his mind racing with the implications. This was their chance to strike a blow to the Zilari military capabilities, not just to spy and retreat. "Prepare a boarding party. We intercept that shipment. Not only does it cripple their armament supply, but it also gives us leverage," he decided, turning his decision into action. The boarding party was small, handpicked by Hans for their skills and silence. They donned their space suits in silence, each member checking their gear as they prepared to exit the Endeavour and navigate through the asteroid field to the outpost. "Remember, this is a stealth mission. In and out, no engagements unless absolutely necessary," Hans briefed them, his gaze lingering on each face, memorizing them in case it was for the last time. "We're not just thieves in the night, we're phantoms." As the boarding party departed, Hans returned to the bridge, where Annika continued to monitor Zilari communications for any sign of alarm. Minutes stretched into hours as the tension mounted, each passing second a testament to the crew's skill and the Ghost Drive's efficacy. Finally, the boarding party returned, not just successful, but also undetected. They had intercepted the plutonium shipment and had even gathered more intelligence on Zilari military operations. The crew of the SS Endeavour breathed a collective sigh of relief, their mission not just a success, but a signal of their capabilities. As Hans looked at the stolen plutonium now secured in the cargo hold, he realized they had achieved more than he had hoped. They had shown that even the mightiest could be surprised, that underestimating an opponent, especially one as resourceful as humanity, could be a fatal flaw. With their mission accomplished, Hans ordered the Endeavour to retreat from the asteroid field, their course set for home. But their journey in the galaxy's political landscape was just beginning. The SS Endeavour cut a silent path through the cold expanse of space, its return journey to Earth charged with a quiet tension. The stolen plutonium shipment was securely stored in the cargo hold, a tangible symbol of their daring raid. Captain Hans Becker, however, remained vigilant, aware that the true test of their mission's success was yet to come. As they neared the boundary of Zilari space, Dr. Annika Weber, stationed at her communications console, intercepted a flurry of encrypted transmissions that caused her brow to furrow in concentration. "Captain, I'm picking up significant military chatter. It looks like the Zilari might be aware of our intrusion, or at least that something's amiss," she reported, her voice tinged with concern. Hans approached, his expression composed. "Can you determine their vector? Are they on an intercept course?" After a few moments of adjusting her instruments, Annika replied, "Yes, it looks like they've dispatched a cruiser. They're fast, Captain. They'll be on us within the hour." The news tightened the atmosphere on the bridge. Hans considered their options briefly before making a decision. Prepare for evasive maneuvers. Inform the crew to brace for potential combat. We might not be able to outrun them, but we'll be ready for them. As the crew busied themselves with preparations, Hans and Annika devised a strategy. The SS Endeavour was no warship, but its stealth capabilities provided them with a significant tactical advantage. If they could use the asteroid belt they were approaching as cover, they might be able to ambush the pursuing Zilari cruiser. Here's the plan. Hans began, outlining his idea to the navigation and weapons teams. We'll use the asteroids as cover to mask our approach and hit them hard and fast with everything we've got. Our goal is to disable, not destroy. We need to send a message that we're not to be trifled with. The tension escalated as the Zilari cruiser appeared on their sensors, a sleek and menacing silhouette against the backdrop of stars. The SS Endeavour dipped into the asteroid belt, using the large, tumbling rocks as both shield and camouflage. In the quiet before the storm, Hans addressed his crew over the ship's communication system. This crew has shown exceptional bravery and skill. I have every confidence in your abilities. Let's see this through. The Zilari cruiser, powerful but not as nimble, followed them into the belt. It was a cat-and-mouse game of deadly stakes, with Hans skillfully navigating the Endeavour through increasingly risky maneuvers. Finally, as they rounded a particularly large asteroid, they found themselves behind the Zilari ship. It was now or never. "Fire all weapons," Hans commanded. The SS Endeavour unleashed a volley of torpedoes and energy blasts, catching the Zilari cruiser off guard. The attack was precise, targeting the cruiser's engines and weapon systems. The Zilari ship, crippled and drifting, was no longer a threat. Hans ordered a ceasefire as soon as it was clear the Zilari cruiser was disabled. "Dr. Weber, open a channel to their ship. Let's talk." Annika's fingers moved quickly, establishing communication. A moment later, the image of a Zilari commander appeared on the bridge's main screen, his face a mask of frustration and surprise. "Commander Zalfar, I presume," Hans began, his voice calm and authoritative. "Your ship is disabled. We could have destroyed it, but we chose not to. Let's end this pursuit here." The Zilari commander, after a tense pause, inclined his head slightly, a sign of reluctant respect. "Your message is clear, Captain Becker. We will retreat, but this isn't over." As the transmission ended and the SS Endeavour made its way out of the asteroid belt, the crew breathed a collective sigh of relief. They had faced one of the most formidable forces in the galaxy and had emerged victorious. The journey back to Earth would be long, but the ship was alive with a sense of triumph and newfound respect, not just among the stars, but amongst themselves. The SS Endeavour sailed through the cosmos, its return to Earth now shadowed by the complex political ramifications of their encounter with the Zilari cruiser. The crew, though buoyed by their recent victory, was keenly aware that their actions had likely ignited a larger diplomatic firestorm. Captain Hans Becker and Dr. Annika Weber were deep in discussion in the strategy room, plotting out their next moves. "We've shown that we can defend ourselves, but this skirmish may have broader implications," Hans mused, studying the star map that glowed softly on the table between them. "We need to leverage our position now more than ever." Annika nodded in agreement, her mind racing through various scenarios. The Zilari respect strength, but they also value cunning. We could use this incident as a diplomatic wedge to gain more favorable terms with them, or even sow some division within their ranks. Their strategic deliberations were interrupted by an urgent communication from Earth Command. The video screen flickered to life, revealing General Harris, his expression grave. "Captain Becker, your recent engagement has not gone unnoticed. The Zilari are demanding reparations and threatening further action. However, there's also a faction within their government that's impressed by your tact. They're open to talks." Hans' eyes narrowed thoughtfully. "Understood, General. We'll prepare for both eventualities. Diplomacy backed by a show of strength may be our best course forward." With Earth Command's blessing, Hans and Annika formulated a dual approach. They would send a diplomatic envoy to the Zilari capital, offering to discuss the incident and propose a mutual non-aggression pact. Simultaneously, they would discreetly support the more moderate Zilari faction that favored engagement over conflict. As the SS Endeavour resumed its journey, the ship buzzed with preparations. Hans selected a small team for the diplomatic mission, including Annika, who would be crucial in navigating the cultural and linguistic nuances of the Zilari. Meanwhile, in the depths of the ship's lower decks, the engineering team led by Chief Engineer Malik was tasked with a secretive project. They were modifying a decommissioned service drone, equipping it with surveillance technology. This drone would be discreetly deployed in Zilari space to gather intelligence and monitor the political landscape. Days later, as the SS Endeavour approached the Zilari border, the drone was launched. Its silent engines and stealth coating allowed it to slip undetected into Zilari territory, where it began relaying crucial data back to the ship. The diplomatic team, meanwhile, made their way to the Zilari capital. The city was a marvel of alien architecture, its towering structures and floating gardens a testament to the Zilari's advanced aesthetic sensibilities. The team was escorted through the bustling, vibrant streets to the Great Council Chamber, where leaders of various Zilari factions awaited. The negotiations were tense, with Hans leading the discussion, carefully balancing humility with assertiveness. He expressed regret over the confrontation, but emphasized the need for mutual respect and proposed the non-aggression pact as a foundation for future cooperation. As Hans presented his points, Annika watched the Zilari delegates closely, interpreting not just their words, but also their body language and unspoken cues. She noticed a divide among them. Some were clearly intrigued by the proposal, seeing it as an opportunity to modernize and expand Zilari influence through peaceful means. The meeting concluded with the Zilari agreeing to consider the proposal, a small victory in what promised to be a protracted negotiation process. As the human delegation left the chamber, Hans felt a cautious optimism. They had opened a door, however slight, towards a more stable and cooperative future with the Zilari. Back on the SS Endeavour, the crew awaited news from the drone. It had captured critical information that could sway the negotiations further in their favor, a recording of a secret meeting between hardline Zilari factions planning to overthrow the moderates. Armed with this new intelligence, Hans prepared for the next round of talks, ready to use every piece of knowledge, every tactic at his disposal to secure peace, or at least a significant advantage for humanity. As the SS Endeavour orbited discreetly around a minor moon of the Zilari system, the mood aboard was a mixture of anticipation and tension. Captain Hans Becker, having returned from the initial diplomatic talks, was now in the strategy room with Dr. Annika Weber and their core team, planning their next moves. The room was filled with the low hum of the ship's core and the occasional beep of incoming data from their hidden surveillance drone. "Here's the situation," Hans began, his eyes scanning the faces of his team. "The drone has intercepted communications that confirm a faction within the Zilari leadership is planning a coup against the moderates. This information could shift the power dynamics in our favor, but we need to play this carefully." Annika, who had been analyzing the intercepted data, added, "The hardliners are convinced that escalating military aggression is the way to cement their power. They're wary of any form of peace with humans, seeing it as a sign of weakness." Hans nodded solemnly. "Then we'll need to ensure our next steps strengthen the moderates without overtly antagonizing the hardliners. We need the Zilari united, but on terms that don't lead to further conflict." The plan was daring. They would anonymously leak evidence of the hardliners' plans to the Zilari media, exposing the coup without directly implicating themselves. This would hopefully empower the moderates and discredit the hardliners, creating a more favorable environment for peace talks. Simultaneously, Hans decided to enhance their diplomatic efforts by arranging a cultural exchange aboard the SS Endeavour. Inviting members of the Zilari Council to experience human culture and technology firsthand could foster goodwill and understanding. Annika, coordinate with the Cultural Affairs Officer. Let's make sure this event showcases the best of humanity. We need them to see us as allies worth having, Hans instructed. Meanwhile, the engineering team discreetly transmitted the encrypted evidence to Zilari media channels. Within hours, the news of the impending coup had gone viral in the Zilari network, sparking widespread outrage and political debate. The hardliners found themselves on the defensive, scrambling to maintain their credibility. As the cultural exchange event began, several Zilari delegates, including some from the moderate faction, were welcomed aboard the SS Endeavour. They were greeted with displays of human art, music, and technological achievements. Dr. Weber took the lead in many discussions, her deep knowledge of Zilari customs and language proving invaluable in bridging the cultural divide. The event was a success, with many Zilari expressing genuine admiration and curiosity about human culture. Commander Zalfar, who had been skeptical, found himself engaged in a deep conversation with Hans about Earth's history of overcoming internal conflicts. As the evening wound down, news arrived that the Zilari Council had voted to open formal peace negotiations with Earth, significantly influenced by the public's backlash against the hardliners and the positive reception of the human cultural showcase. Back in the strategy room, Hans and his team watched as the political landscape on Zeller Prime shifted before their eyes. "This is more than I hoped for," Hans admitted, allowing a rare smile to cross his face. "But the real work starts now. We need to ensure that these negotiations lead to lasting peace." The crew of the SS Endeavour prepared for the next phase, knowing that while they had won a significant battle, the war for peace was just beginning. Their ship, once just a silent observer in the galaxy, was now a key player in shaping its future. In the aftermath of the cultural exchange and the shifting political tides on Zillar Prime, the SS Endeavour remained stationed discreetly near the Zilari moon. The ship had become a temporary hub for diplomatic activities as representatives from both human and Zilari factions continued to negotiate the terms of what would be a historic peace treaty. Captain Hans Becker, now widely regarded as a pivotal figure in these negotiations, was deeply involved in crafting the treaty's details. Alongside Dr. Annika Weber, whose expertise had proved invaluable, Hans worked tirelessly to ensure that the treaty would not only end immediate hostilities, but also lay a foundation for lasting interstellar cooperation. "Captain, the latest draft includes provisions for trade and technology exchange that should be very beneficial for us," Annika reported, handing over a digital tablet filled with complex legal language and annotations. Hans reviewed the document, nodding approvingly at the clauses that ensured mutual security and economic benefits. "Make sure there's a clause about joint exploration initiatives. If we're going to share a galaxy, we might as well explore it together," he suggested, knowing that shared goals often cemented deeper alliances. Meanwhile, the SS Endeavour had become a symbol of peace, its once unknown corridors now familiar to a host of alien diplomats. The crew, too, adapted to their roles as part-time ambassadors, hosting discussions and tours that showcased human innovation and culture. As the negotiations neared their conclusion, a grand ceremony was planned on Zeller Prime to sign the treaty. The event was to be broadcast across multiple systems, symbolizing not just the end of conflict between humans and the Zilari, but also the beginning of a new era of galactic diplomacy. The day of the signing, Hans and his delegation, dressed in formal uniforms, transported to Zeller Prime. The planet's capital was a breathtaking city of towering structures and flowing waterways, reflecting the Zilari's advanced aesthetic and engineering capabilities. The ceremony was held in the Great Assembly Hall, a vast amphitheater that now teemed with representatives from various Zilari factions and allied species. As Hans approached the podium to sign the treaty, he felt the weight of history on his shoulders. Cameras flashed, and a hush fell over the assembly as he put pen to holographic paper, his signature glowing briefly in the air before solidifying into the treaty text. Commander Zalfar, representing the Zilari, joined him at the podium. In a gesture that few could have anticipated months earlier, Zalfar offered his hand to Hans in friendship. "Captain Becker, "May this be the dawn of a new age for us all," he said, his voice resonant in the massive hall. "Commander Zolfar, I believe it will be. Let's make sure it's an age of peace and prosperity," Hans replied, shaking his hand firmly. The assembly erupted in applause, a sound that echoed not just in the hall, but across galaxies as the moment was broadcast to billions. Celebrations followed, with Earth and Zilari musicians performing together, symbolizing the new harmony between the two cultures. Back on the SS Endeavour, as the crew watched the celebrations from orbit, there was a sense of pride and relief. They had been part of something much bigger than themselves, something that had changed the course of galactic history. In the quiet moments after the ceremony, Hans stood looking out at the stars from his ship. The galaxy seemed a little less vast now, a little more like home. They had faced incredible odds, bridged seemingly insurmountable differences, and emerged not just unscathed but stronger. As the SS Endeavour prepared to return to Earth, Hans knew that their return journey was not just a trip back home, but a voyage to a future full of possibilities. The peace they had helped forge would need nurturing, and he was ready for the challenge. The SS Endeavour glided through the cosmos, its journey back to Earth marked not by the tension of outward travel, but by the contemplation of success and the anticipation of a hero's welcome. Captain Hans Becker, standing in the observatory with a rare moment of respite, gazed out at the passing stars. Each one seemed to hold a promise, a reminder of the vast and varied universe that was now a little more open to humanity. In the solitude of space, Hans reflected on the recent events. The treaty with the Zilari, a once unimaginable achievement, was now reality, and with it came new responsibilities and opportunities. It was a testament to what could be achieved when diverse beings listened and learned from one another. He pondered the future, considering the paths that lay open before them, the new alliances, and the joint ventures awaiting activation. Meanwhile, Dr. Annika Weber was busy in her lab, compiling data and samples collected from their interactions with the Zilari and other species they had encountered. Her work, once solely academic, now had profound implications for future diplomatic and cultural exchanges. She meticulously documented her findings, aware that her research would soon be shared with the world's leading scientific and diplomatic institutions. As the SS Endeavour neared Earth, preparations for their arrival were in full swing. The crew, each member now a seasoned envoy, rehearsed their accounts of the mission. They understood the importance of their stories, not just as records of their journey, but as narratives that would inspire others. The day of their return, Earth's orbit was alive with media ships, their cameras trained on the SS Endeavour as it descended. The world watched, eager to see the ship that had ventured into unknown space and returned with a peace treaty that shifted the galactic balance. Upon landing, Hans and his crew were greeted by throngs of people, scientists, politicians, journalists, and civilians. The air was electric with cheers and applause, a global celebration of their historic success. They were ushered into a grand auditorium where leaders from major Earth governments awaited. Hans, taking the podium at the Global Assembly, shared their tale. He spoke of the challenges they faced, the alliances they forged, and the delicate negotiations that had woven the fabric of peace. "Today we stand at the dawn of a new era," he declared, his voice resounding through the hall. "An era where humanity stretches its hand not only to the stars but to fellow beings across the galaxy." Dr. Weber joined him, detailing the scientific and cultural insights gained. Her speech complemented Hans's narrative, painting a picture of a universe rich with diversity and potential. "Our mission was diplomatic, but it was also a voyage of discovery. We have much to learn from our galactic neighbors, and they, in turn, from us." The assembly ended with a standing ovation. The crew of the SS Endeavour, once underdogs in a universe that seemed too vast and too cold, were now celebrated as pioneers of a new frontier. In the weeks that followed, Hans and Annika were involved in briefings with top government and military officials. Plans were made for joint missions with the Zilari, including cultural exchanges and cooperative research initiatives. One evening, as the fanfare settled into a quieter routine of planning and preparation, Hans visited the SS Endeavour, now docked as a symbol of human resilience and diplomatic prowess. Standing once again in the observatory, he looked out at the stars. This time, the stars didn't seem so distant. They were almost familiar, each one a destination, a friend, a story waiting to be discovered. With the ship silent around him, Hans felt a profound connection to the vastness of space, an explorer at heart, forever drawn to the unknown. As he turned to leave, a smile played on his lips. The adventure was far from over, it was just beginning. The vastness of space enveloped the SS Endeavour once more as it embarked on its new mission, no longer just an explorer or a diplomat, but a harbinger of Earth's burgeoning role in galactic affairs. Captain Hans Becker stood at the helm, the familiar controls under his hands, the endless star field ahead. This time, however, his ship carried not only the hopes of Earth but the promise of new beginnings for the galaxy. As the Endeavour cruised towards the edge of human space, where the first joint exploratory mission with the Zilari was to commence, Hans reflected on the changes the past months had brought. The universe seemed less a frontier and more a community, albeit a fragile one, held together by the threads of treaties and mutual interests. Meanwhile, Dr. Annika Weber prepared her team in the ship's laboratory. The joint mission was to survey uncharted territories that might hold keys to understanding the galaxy's history and perhaps clues to its future. Annika felt the weight of responsibility, not just to gather data, but to ensure that this cooperation was a testament to what species could achieve together. Remember, everyone, this isn't just about science. Annika addressed her mixed team of human and Zilari researchers. We're also here to set an example of how collaboration can work. We're not just colleagues. We're ambassadors. Back on Earth, the political landscape was shifting. The success of the SS Endeavour had sparked a surge of interest in space exploration, but also in military expansion. Admiral Clark, overseeing Earth's defense, viewed the ship's diplomatic victories with a strategic eye. "We must be prepared," he stated in a high-level meeting, "not just to defend our own, but to maintain our stance as a power within this new galactic council." The Admiral's words were pragmatic, a reminder that peace was often tethered to power. His plans included enhancing Earth's fleet with technology inspired by what the Endeavour had encountered, ensuring that Earth would not be caught off guard in the event of future conflicts. Amid these preparations, Hans received a communique from Commander Zalfar, now an ally, warning of fringe elements within the Zilari territories, who viewed the burgeoning human-Zilari partnership with suspicion. "We must tread carefully," Zalfar advised. "Not all are pleased with the path of peace." This message underscored the delicate balance of galactic politics, where alliances were as fluid as the nebula and just as opaque. It reinforced the necessity of the Endeavour's mission, to build bridges strong enough to withstand the tremors of dissent. As the SS Endeavour approached the rendezvous coordinates with the Zilari vessels, Hans convened his senior crew in the briefing room. "This mission will test more than our skills and knowledge," he said, his gaze meeting each of theirs. "It will test our ability to unite, to find common ground even when faced with the unknown. Let's show the galaxy that peace is not just an ideal, but a practice." The joint mission commenced under the dual banners of exploration and diplomacy. The crews worked side by side, their efforts not just in mapping stars and studying cosmic phenomena, but in understanding each other, sharing meals, stories, and sometimes silent contemplations of the universe they shared. In these moments of quiet cooperation, the future seemed bright, a vast expanse filled with the light of stars and the promise of peace. Yet the shadows of potential conflicts lingered, a reminder that in the cosmos, as in the hearts of beings, darkness and light existed in a delicate balance. As the SS Endeavour continued its journey, threading through star systems and bridging worlds, Hans felt a cautious optimism. They had set forth to chart the unknown, and in doing so, they were drawing a new map of the galaxy, one where humans were not only explorers but leaders in the quest for a united universe.